voices rise from different lands, guided by the moon with open hands. In the circle we unite as one, sharing wisdom under the sun. Divine feminine voices, we are three, three hearts, one spirit in harmony. On this journey, our truths we share. In the light of love, we're always there.
I love that one.
That song just hard. I'm over here dancing like this, and then all of a sudden it gets to the sharing in the life that we share or something, and then I get all teary-eyed.
Oh, I love it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Smile. Music is like so good for the soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. Welcome, welcome everyone. Divine Feminine Souls. We were just chatting before we came on air about all the things. So we're going to share some of that. Anyone want to start? With?
I'm still so emotional that even just telling you all the story. There's so much going on. I'm trying to shut down everything. There's so much going on in the world that I'm highly sensitive and triggered, even more than normal as an empath, right? And I'm trying to keep my head out of the stuff that could trigger me. But, we were just having that conversation before about what's going on in the United States and how I walked around the corner and talked to my neighbor because he had been avoiding me. He avoided me, and we always talk, and he harasses me and jokes with me and sends me crazy texts and stuff. And for the last couple of weeks, he hasn't said anything to me. So I asked him, I was like, hey, what's going on? What is going on with you? And he's like, nothing. I was like, And he went on to tell me that he was being financially impacted by some things. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, but you voted for XYZ. And he went on to tell me why he did that. And to make a long story short, there was one sticking point that brought him into making a decision to vote for XYZ. And then I asked him, I was like, so what about what's happening with the tariffs? And he was like, what's happening with the tariffs? And I was blown away, right? I was absolutely blown away because the tariffs are impacting the entire world, the entire world. So I was triggered by that and kept walking.
And Cheryl, can you just say a little clearer what you're saying? Terrorists or
no
tariffs?
Tariffs. TARIFFS. They are impacting every single one of our pocketbooks. Every single one of them. And they're affecting the farmers. It's just a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
And also the relationship between countries.
And not to mention our beloved relationships with countries such as Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, I know up here we're very much going to buy Canadian and not traveling to the States. That was already my choice anyways for the next 4 years, but I have to say that more people who would never have said that are like, no, we're not spending our money there if this is what's going to happen. We're not going to buy American, and it's going to be a big impact. So looking at what triggers us, right? and what we can do with that, because we could get into a whole political debate, which, we don't need to do. What is our responsibility in being triggered by those things? Right?
Right.
What is...
I think that's a really good question. I mean, number one is like noticing, when you are triggered and to go inward more with that. Like, why am I being triggered? Often I'll say, whether I'm a speaker on a stage or in a group or whatnot, I'll say, if there's something that I say that bothers you and it irritates you, please don't walk out of this room without talking to me about it, because there's probably some clarity that needs to happen, right? So what that is an invitation for is to go deeper, to understand, like, why is that bothering me? Why am I frustrated with that, or I'm angry? And as a result, they, me as the speaker, may be irritated at me, for saying something, right? Or maybe it's not me, but they could get more clarity out of that. Is my mic okay?
Yeah. Huh,
Okay.
you're fine.
It's not the, are you on your regular mic, or is it your
I'm on
computer?
the road. I think I'm
Oh,
on the road.
okay.
We do test these things, believe it or not. When I'm watching.
Sorry,
It
And
sounds
we're
like
on and we're like
different.
questioning everything.
Yeah, it just sounds different than it did when we started, and since she went out and came back in. Make sure your
Yeah.
settings say the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Cheryl.
yeah, right now I'm so hypersensitive. There's just a lot going on in the world, and so many people that I love and care for, or even that I don't know, but I just like to walk in love now, are being affected by things that we really shouldn't have to worry about. We
Yeah.
really didn't.
So then what's the see, I've come to I'd have to say before the election, and I didn't get to vote, I'm Canadian, although it impacts me, so I wish I could have. But before that, I was very much like that, triggered by everything. And then something happened that morning of the next day after the vote. And it was like this settling in of, this is what we need to start making change. People don't make change unless it affects them, right?
True.
Unless there's something that is going to, they need a reason. We're not preventative type people. We're not going to do things ahead of time. And so we need that to kickstart these things. And so I'm seeing this as a positive thing, that now more and more people are going to stand up. More and more women are going to stand up. More and more minorities are going to stand up. People need to stand up and do something. And that's part of being triggered, right? So what are you doing with being triggered by something? Are you going inward or are you going outward? And when we go outward and lash out at other people, what's that causing? It's just causing a bigger divide. And so when we go inward and look at, why are we being triggered? What is our place in this? What can we do with this? And that's what we need to be doing right now. I think that's what we need to be doing right now.
Agreed, absolutely. And I feel like it's like the burning of the ashes. Like, right, you have to sometimes burn. Unfortunately, we look at like the California fires, and you realize like those fires are horrible, and it's definitely not something that anybody wants to live through. But when there's catastrophic events, we come together as humanity, typically, right? As a community, and then we rise up. And I think that that's what our conversation here is, especially why we created the Divine Feminine Souls with the three of us, because we are from such different places in our life, that we've made friends, and we've worked on our relationships to understand one another. Because back 4 years ago, when we first met each other, we didn't really know, and sometimes we triggered each other, right? And instead of running from the relationship, we pulled each other in, like, hey girl, tell me more, give me your eyes so I can see, so I can feel even a glimmer of what it is that you feel, because I don't walk in your skin. I haven't walked the steps before to this point. Please help me understand. And I think that and I feel very emotional right now, as your friends, I thoroughly believe that we are 100% friends. That I think, when I think of I need to talk to someone, I think of you guys, so I know that you're my friends, and I'm so grateful for that. But mostly why I am proud to call you friends is I can say, hey, ladies, like, I don't understand this. I don't know everything. Can you please give me your perspective from your skin? I don't understand it. Help me. And I think that the vulnerability of that shows, one, I don't know it. I don't know it all, nor does anyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to know, and I want to borrow your eyes so I can feel what you feel for a moment, so I can create a change if there's something that I can do.
And we've had some of those really difficult conversations, right? Whether it's, race or sexual identity or whatever it is, and many other things. I'm just thinking, the obvious ones in the room, but we've had some of those really difficult conversations where, it's just an understanding and wanting to know more from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And, it's very true. We can't be in the other person's shoes, but we can try to understand from that place, right? Try and by asking questions, by being open to things, and having honest conversations, and saying when things are not okay, right? When the language we use is not okay, when different things that we are leaning towards are not okay, and we can have those conversations. And I think that's really important in a true friendship, right? Can you
Even
do
like
that?
what Cheryl just said, and I want to really just put this out there. I don't mean to step over you, Cheryl. I know you have something to say, but like, I feel that that is such a beautiful thing that she said to her neighbor, hey guy, like, I haven't heard from you. What's up? Like, I'm feeling some tension. And so she got, because the relationship mattered enough, she got curious and she put herself out there, and that's scary, and that could be vulnerable, and he could have said something that really upset her, and instead she just got curious with why. And I think that that's so powerful, and I praise you for that, Cheryl, because you could have come up against something that just was very uncomfortable and you wanted to pivot, but instead you were like, yeah, you matter. Our friendship matters.
Yeah. I'm sitting here and pondering so many things as we have this conversation, but for that particular person, he does matter. His kids really matter to me. I love the innocence of the children, right? They have no clue until they do. Of what's going on in the world. And one of his daughter is my little walking buddy. So if you ever see me on social media and you see me walking with a little white girl, it's Larissa, as a matter of fact, that is walking with me. And she brings me so much joy. And she's a fellow Sag. So there's just some little things that mix between us. And she'll just talk my ear off. And it's just a breath of fresh air in the simplicity of life. But I heard you say that it was powerful. It took a lot for me to build up to go and have that conversation, because I had to protect myself to make sure if he said something like funky, which he's quirky, so he could say something funky and I probably wouldn't mind. It probably wouldn't matter to me. I'd be like, forget you, XYZ. But just in case, I wanted to make sure. I took a couple of days to think about it before I had the conversation. And there's a gentleman across the street. He has cussed me out unexpectedly, and I cried when he did. So I cried like a baby. And then when he came back and apologized to me, because he was in a moment in his life that was complicated, of course I accepted with open arms. But I'm thinking about, and he sits outside and smokes a cigar, I'm thinking about going to have a conversation with him, because he's very much an intellect. And I want to understand his perspective, because the decisions that are being made are impacting so many people's lives.
Right.
And I don't want this to turn into a completely about politics, but I read an article this morning, early morning, about types of negotiation styles. And did you see that article, Larissa? Have you seen it?
I haven't read it yet, but I did see the article. I have it saved.
Very much worth reading. very much worth reading. It's a little wonky, when they talk political wonkiness, but it talks about the difference between the art of the deal and a person that can really understand a full cycle, complementive type negotiation skill. In the art of the deal, it's either you win or you lose. In the other type, you compromise, you come to a decision that's peaceful for all. And so when we are faced with situations that we're dealing with people where it's either black or white, and I don't mean by the color of our skin, and they can only see things that way, we as people that are very compassionate and empowering and loving and kind of simple, we will be like triggered by it. Right? Because you got to think outside the box. I mean, how could you not be thinking outside? That's how we think. But when those people can only think black and white, then it's not in their wheelhouse. And I don't think that you can change that. I think that that's in their chemistry. So
Yeah.
I don't know about chemistry, right? Because we're not born with these belief systems, but we absolutely acquire them through our lives.
you don't
And-
think that could be in his DNA if you look back at the history?
Well, I'm sure his family history, right? It's ancestral. So I
Yeah.
would say yes, that there's something to that, but I don't know if it's like genetics per se. It's family history and ancestral traumas and all the things that go with that will feed into that. Just like our opinions are, our beliefs are, right? And so we have differing based on how we're raised and the families that came before, but also this theory of let them, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about Mel Robbins' new book, The Let Them Theory. Let them, let me, right? So that's the second part. Let them, let me. And that has been something I have really struggled with in my life, right? Because it's like, I'm going to change your opinion because this is wrong. You can't treat people like that. And so it's like, what is our place in letting them be who they are, but letting ourselves, let me stand up for what I believe in and not hurting people. And so it's a balancing act that we have to do that, because people have a right to their own opinion, right? Where I struggle with really is when it starts to affect human rights and things like that, right? Like as a gay woman, yeah. It's like, as a gay woman, my life is threatened by certain belief systems that are being idolized right now, for lack of a better word. And so, whether it's the color of our skin or what country we were born in, or maybe not even born in, what country our family came from, or, whatever it is, because honestly, anyone in North America that isn't Indigenous is an immigrant, right?
Is an immigrant, yeah.
Is an immigrant.
Oh,
So-
that could take us down a whole.
But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But the belief systems that we have, and being able to allow people to have their own, while still being true to ourselves and finding a balance of safety. How do we bring more love into talking to people who have such differing and dangerous beliefs? I'd love an answer to that. Anyone out there have an answer to that?
and I think that, in my opinion, it's doing the work. It's sharing. Again, you're sharing your belief systems or your perspective. And oftentimes in my family, in my practice, I will say, this is my perspective, right? Just because it's something that I see or how I'm seeing it right now, it gives leeway for, like, tell me what your perspective is, because I'm willing to morph this and change or evolve and expand. I approach life very curious, and I was raised very my grandfather fought in the Second War. His father fought in the First War. And so there was prejudice in our family that we were raised among. And as a child, I didn't like the feeling of that layer. And understandably, after hearing my grandfather's stories and how he put platoon after platoon out and these people were killing his men, and then he was treated for mental health for many, many sessions of electric shock treatment.
Wow.
The anger was underlying in the currency of our family, right? So, but I didn't understand it. I just felt it. So as a child, I didn't feel good when those conversations were arising. So I made my own decisions. I didn't want to be told of who not to like. So at a young age, I made the decision to make my own evaluation. But I was always curious of like, why do you feel like so even as at a party or in a community, if someone says, oh, I don't like that person, or I don't like that person's awful, and I'll say, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, like, what is there a reason? So I want to know why before I go, oh, I'm on your bandwagon. Right? Like, I stay very grounded, but I stay true to myself. So I think just being curious of why other people have feelings on certain things and how they were treated, or why their opinion is their opinion. I, I just think that when you are confident in who you are, you're open to embrace other people's perspective and then evaluate the situation differently from there.
Without trying to change them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Without trying to change them.
No.
Yeah.
But teaching people why, right? Like, I think, again, going into you sharing who you are and what your fears are. So we can understand that rather than shame it or hate it because we don't know, right? Looking at why, tell me why, what are your feelings? Why are you feeling that way? What are your fears? How can I help you? That's a whole different perspective than, oh, you have your opinion. That's stupid. That doesn't add any value to anyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Cheryl, what are you thinking? I feel like you're busy processing over there.
I am. I'm just, it's been a long week, so I don't have a whole lot to say. And I think that this is all weighing on me, not you all, but the whole what's happening in the world is weighing on me all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it's really hitting me. All the things that I've been just kind of dabbling in and checking out here and there, and seeing some of the activities that are going on social media. I mean, I'm being triggered. I'm absolutely being triggered, and trying to figure out the let them philosophy on this is really got my brain pondering. Like, how do you let the children at UGA that are protesting, for the things that they were saying just surprised me. It was anti-Nazi, anti Hitler is, I think. And then there's been some lynchings that people aren't talking about, and it's just heavy. It's heavy energy in the world right now.
Mhm.
We have to be very careful about what we let into our souls. And I think I've let a little bit too much into my soul lately, is what I'm feeling right now. So
I think that's a great point, because when we think that we're going to hold the weight of the world, it just weighs us down. And so, and I know you guys, laugh at me, or sometimes, as you even said, did you read that article? I try to do my best to skim the surface of what's going on, mainly because not to be ignorant, but to do the work that I need to do so I can help enlighten the others. I have a family member who somewhat triggered me this week, and I thought it was my responsibility to at first to make her feel better. But then when I sat back and let it be, because she also is being triggered by some personal stuff plus some things that's going on in the world, in her world, um she I kind of sat back and I realized, like, it wasn't about me. It wasn't me directly. It wasn't towards me, but I was feeling the heaviness of it. Right. And so, because we're raised in the same family, I was like, oh, is it me? Did I do something wrong? And then I was like, I can't take this one more thing. Right. So I paused and I took care of my soul. And I reminded myself that I'm safe and that I'm okay and that I need to love on myself, and whatever she's holding on to and all the weight of the world that's on her shoulders, I need her to organize all of that, right? Because if I try to lift her as well as myself, I'm going down because these little legs can't hold it all. Just saying. So why I keep myself and protect myself and sometimes keep myself in a cave of white light, crystals, whatever, with my doggy. It's so those times when someone gives me their weight, I could clarify and know, oh, no, this is not me. Right. So I don't fall into the trigger of like me not being right, me not being good enough. I'm not the best person. I'm not the best friend, or I'm not whatever all that negative spiral takes me into. But I can step back and say, okay, I can help where I can be helpful, but I cannot put myself in the mix of a storm that there's nothing for me to do there.
Yeah.
So we have to trust that someone else is going to help in those areas that we can't help.
Yeah. And I think we decided on this conversation based on friendships, right? We were talking about I had a situation where I was so looking forward to hanging out with somebody that I considered a friend. Because as an entrepreneur, a solo entrepreneur that stays at home, that works behind the desk all the time, that only really gets out to go for a walk and then she's right back down in front of the desk again. An outing with a girlfriend is like it's like a Christmas present. And this particular person has done it to me before. And so it triggers me, but it made me this time step back and look at me and why am I pushing to allow this person to be my friend? Why is it so important that somebody that is quote unquote or whatever quotes mistreating me, why is it important for me to have them in my life? And it's not. And so we just need to let them,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just need to let them and go find some new friends.
And that's the let me part of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that we can't change people. And we often contort ourselves to fit in. And it's part of the hardwiring that we have, right? Because we want to be a part of the group of, we don't want to get kicked out of the tribe. Like that's hardwired into us. It's a survival instinct. But as women, especially, we have taken it to the next level where we bend over backwards to accommodate everyone else. Everybody else is more important than we are. And we have got to stop doing that. We have to put ourselves first, and it's not selfish, right? We need to decide on what is important and let them be them, family, friends, whatever. Let me look after myself and do what I need. And that means, yeah, friendships, go by the wayside. Maybe you don't spend as much time with certain family, whatever it is, to be able to look after ourselves. But I just wanted to jump backwards for just a second. I know we're kind of at time now,
Oh, are we? I
but
was
there
gonna
are
say
some,
there's one more thing too.
there are some things that out in the world physically, right? There's some things you can, you saw it too. some things that can just fly under the radar, and we can let them. As a gay person, when I am out with my wife, I have to be aware. Cheryl, as a Black person, has to be aware, right? There are certain things. Here, it's a big problem. Here in Canada, Muslim people are being attacked on a regular here. So there are certain things that you have to be very aware for. You're going to have next level survival instincts kicking in that are going to cause you more anxiety around things. And we can't really understand that. I can't understand what it's like for Cheryl. She can't understand what it's like for me, and every person has it different, and they're going to look at it differently. They're going to show up for it differently. I'm more of a in your face, I'm going to do it. But also I understand the risks of that, right? So we have to let them, but then also looking after ourselves. But then what do we do to change what's happening in the world? My personal opinion, more love. How can we be kind to one another? When somebody reacts to me, I'm going to react with love, right? I'm not going to react with. And so it's like, how can I, bring more of that and more light? And one of the things I've been called to is showing up more, right? Like showing up more, talking about things more, talking about the divine feminine, talking about women standing up and really becoming our most authentic selves. And I think the more we're going to start seeing more and more of that, because many of the women I'm talking to are also being called to that.
Yeah.
So just stand up for your own self first.
I wanted to,
yeah.
yeah,
we
I
have
wanted to
so
say
much.
just real quick. Yeah, just real quick. I was interviewed on a podcast this week, and I'm specifically sharing this because it's about love. It was all about love, and it's called Connect to Love. So if you guys get a chance, go out and listen to it. But my podcast comes up this week. But just the fact that they have a whole podcast that is specifically around us just connecting to love, I thought that was so beautiful. So, Elizabeth.
Yeah, wonderful.
I just want to also just say, Lois, I think that what you shared is a beautiful perspective of preparing yourself. And I think that's the key thing. We're very reactive, right? When someone is inappropriate, mean, rude, whatever. But coming from love and knowing that you're preparing yourself for that time that maybe somebody's inappropriate or unkind, how do you love on yourself first? But that's preparation. That's making sure that you are nurturing your soul. You are seeing that you are a beautiful person, that it is your feminine right to be married to a woman that you love, right? And that you're shining that love. That I think that's the key thing. So when you come from confidence because you're in love, you're sharing that with the world. And so for the listener who's like, oh, that's great, but you have to do the work first on yourself, right? Mm-hmm. You have to love on who you are in all parts of who you are. Just like Cheryl has to love on herself, I have to love on myself, because then we can react with love. Otherwise, it's boiled up and it spills over and looks like anger and hate. And that's the fear, right? So yeah, love that.
Thank you. Any final words before we go? Just to thank everyone for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you.
And I think that I would love to hear what other people's opinions are or thoughts, or maybe their struggles in the comments, and find, let us hold that space for you to be heard or seen. So if someone is struggling in this time, we have lots of resources to be able to support you and back you up, but you should not be out there trying this, to lead with love alone if you could have a tribe like us that can love on you and help you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.